Chapter 12B. "Please," began Mary. "Please." And then the lump in her throat choked her. "What do you want to say?" he inquired. I'm too big for a nurse," said Mary. "And please don't make me have a governess yet." He rubbed his forehead again and he stared at her. "That's what the Sowerby woman said," he muttered absently. Then Mary gathered a scrap of courage. Is she Martha's mother?" she stammered. "Yes, I think so," he replied. "But she knows about children," said Mary. "She has 12. She knows." He seemed to rouse himself. "What do you want to do?" "I want to play out of doors," Mary answered, hoping that her voice did not tremble. "I never liked it in India, but it makes me hungry here, and I am getting fatter." He was watching her. "Mrs. Sowerby said it would do you good. Perhaps it will," he said. "She thought you'd better get stronger before you had a governess." "It makes me feel strong when I play and the wind comes over the moor," said Mary. "Where do you play?" he asked. "Everywhere," said Mary. "Martha's mother sent me a skipping rope, and I skip and I run and I look about to see if things are beginning to stick up out of the earth. I don't do any harm." "Don't look so frightened," he said in a worried voice. "You could not do any harm, a child like you." "You may do what you like." Mary put her hand up to her throat because she was afraid he might see the excited lump which she felt come up into it. She came a step nearer to him. "May I?" she asked. Her anxious little face seemed to worry him, and he looked her over. "Don't be so frightened," he exclaimed. "Of course you may. I am your guardian. Though I am a poor one for any child, I cannot give you time or attention. I am too ill and too wretched and too distracted. But I do wish you to be happy and comfortable. I don't know anything about children, but Miss Medlock is to see that you have all that you need. I sent for you today because Miss Sowerby said I ought to see you. Her daughter had talked about you, and she thought you needed fresh air and freedom and running about." "Well, she does know all about children," said Mary again in spite of herself. "Well, she ought to," said Mr. Craven. "I thought her rather bold to stop me on the moor, but she said—" Mrs. Craven had been kind to her. It seemed hard for him to speak his dead wife's name. "She is a respectable woman. Now I have seen you, and I think she said sensible things. Play out of doors as much as you like. It's a big place, and you may go where you like, and you may amuse yourself as you like. Is there anything you want?" he asked, all of a sudden, as if the idea had just struck him. "Do you want toys or books or dolls?" "Might I," quavered Mary, "might I have a bit of earth?" In her eagerness, she did not realize how strange the words would sound, and they were not the ones she had intended to say. Mr. Craven looked quite startled. "Earth?" he repeated. "What do you mean?" To plant seeds in, to make things grow, to see them come alive," Mary faltered. He gazed at her a moment, and then he passed his hand quickly over his eyes. "Do you care about the garden so much?" he asked slowly. "I didn't know about them in India," said Mary. "I was always ill and tired, and it was too hot. I sometimes made little beds in the sand, and I stuck flowers in them, but here it's so different." Mr. Craven got up and began to walk slowly across the room. "A bit of earth," he said to himself, and Mary thought that somehow she must have reminded him of something. When he stopped and spoke to her, His dark eyes looked almost soft and kind. "You can have as much earth as you want," he said. "You remind me of someone else who loved the earth and the things that grow. When you see a bit of earth that you want," he said with something like a smile, "take it, child, and make it come alive." "May I take it from anywhere, if it's not wanted?" "Anywhere," he answered. "There, now, you must go. I'm tired." He touched the bell to call Miss Medlock. "Goodbye. I shall be away all summer." Miss Medlock came so quickly that Mary thought she must have been waiting in the corridor. "Miss Medlock," Mr. Craven said to her, "now I have seen the child, and I understand what Miss Sowerby meant. She must be less delicate before she gets a governess. Give her simple, healthy food. Let her run wild in the garden. Don't look after her too much. She needs liberty and fresh air and romping about. Miss Sowerby is to come and see her now and then, and she may sometimes go to their cottage." Miss Medlock looked pleased. She was relieved to hear that she need not look after Mary too much. She had felt her a tiresome charge, and had indeed seen as little of her as she dared. In addition to this, she was fond of Martha's mother. "Thank you, sir," she said. "Susan Sowerby and me went to school together, and she's as sensible and good-hearted a woman as you'll find in a day's walk. I never had any children myself, but she's had 12, and there never was healthier or better ones. Miss Mary can get no harm from them. I'd always take Susan Sowerby's advice about children myself. She's what you might call healthy-minded, if you understand me." "I understand," Mr. Craven answered. "Take Miss Mary away now and send Pitcher to me." When Miss Medlock left her at the end of her own corridor, Mary flew back into her room. She found Martha waiting there. Martha had, in fact, hurried back after she'd removed the dinner service. "I can have my garden," cried Mary. "I may have it where I like. I'm not going to have a governess for a long time. Your mother is coming to see me, and I may go to your cottage. He says a little girl like me could not do any harm, and I may do what I like anywhere." "Eh?" said Martha delightedly. "That was nice of him, wasn't it?" "Martha," said Mary solemnly, "he is really a nice man. Only his face is so miserable, and his forehead is all drawn together." She ran as quickly as she could to the garden. She'd been away so much longer than she had thought she should, and she knew that Deacon would have set out early for his 5-mile walk. When she slipped through the door under the ivy, she saw he was not working where she had left him. The gardening tools were laid together under a tree. She ran to them, looking all around the place, but there was no Deacon to be seen. He had gone away, and the secret garden was empty, except for the robin who had just flown across the wall and sat on a standard rose bush watching her. "He's gone," she said woefully. "Oh, was he only a wood fairy?" Something white fastened to the standard rose bush caught her eye. It was a piece of paper, in fact. It was a piece of the letter she had printed for Martha to send to Deacon. It was fastened on the bush with a long thorn, and in a minute she knew Deacon had left it there. There were some roughly printed letters on it and sort of a picture. At first she could not tell what it was, and then she saw it was meant for a nest with a bird sitting on it. Underneath were the printed letters, and they said, "I will come back."